Hello, welcome to math. Today we're going to learn about parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so let's start with parallel lines. Remember, parallel lines are two lines that will never cross each other. They're the same distance apart from each other, and they stay the same distance apart from each other. That is called parallel. All right, so what do we know about parallel lines? Is that we know that parallel lines have the same slope but different y-intercepts. So you can see on these two graphed equations here, right? I got y equals negative 3x plus 5 and y equals negative 3x minus 6. You can see that these two are parallel lines. They're the same distance no matter where I go, right? They're the same distance apart. And you can see that, remember, the slope is our m in our equation, right? Our slope for each of these is negative 3. So both of these have the same slope, but different y-intercepts. The y-intercept for this one's negative 6. The y-intercept for this one is a positive 5. So parallel lines have the same slope, but different y-intercept. And that's important because when you have to write a new equation, what you have to have is an ordered pair, and you have to know that the slope is the same, and you plug that information into our slope-intercept form, into y equals mx plus b. So let's do an example. All right, it says write the equation of a line that is parallel to 3x minus 6y equals 12 and passes through the point 4, negative 1. So first I got to figure out what my slope is. I don't know what my slope is in this because I have to make it look like in slope-intercept form. And remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, right? So I don't have this in slope-intercept form. Y is not by itself. So what I have to do is I have to get y by itself. So I want to get y by itself. What do I have to do first? Well, I always start with the thing furthest away from the y. I want to work on the side with the y, and what's furthest away? Well, I see this is a positive 3x, so I would do minus 3x, right? And I would do the same thing to the other side. The reason I do that is because 3 minus 3 gives me 0, so they cancel out. So on my left side, I'm left with negative 6y, and on my right side, I have this negative 3x, and I got that positive 12. So my y is still not by itself yet, right? I have this negative 6 with it. So that means I have to divide by negative 6 to get y by itself. And I got to do the same thing to this side over here. So negative 6 and negative 6, they cancel out, right? And then I got to put it over here. So now I have to do negative 3 divided by negative 6. So what is negative 3 divided by negative 6? Well, let's put it in Desmos here. Let's see. Negative 3 divided by negative 6 gives me 0.5, which is a half, 1 over 2. So my slope is 1 over 2. And I can also divide this 12 divided by negative 6. Positive 12 divided by negative 6 would be negative 2. All right, so now I have it in slope-intercept form. And I see that my equation, based on my equation, I know that this is my slope. That half is my slope, right? So now that I know that, now I can find my new equation. So what I do is I got to write my formula. Y equals mx plus b, right? So I just plug in everything that I know. So I know slope of a parallel line is the same. So this is a half. My new slope here is going to be a half. And now I got to figure out what I know. Well, they gave me this point, and I know that this is my x value and this is my y value, right? So my x value is 4. So I would plug that in for x. All right, I don't know what b is. That's what I got to solve for. But I do know that y is negative 1. All right, so now I got to solve this. So a half times 4 would be 2. So that's going to leave me with 2 plus b on this side. And on my left side, I'm still with that negative 1. So now I want to get b by itself. So I'm going to do minus 2 to get rid of my 2's and do the same thing to this side. Negative 1 minus 2 gives me negative 3. So negative 3 equals b. All right, but that is not my answer. So remember, my answer, I have to write it in slope-intercept form. So it's going to be y equals, it's always y equals. And then I have to write my slope, that's my m, right? My slope was a half, so that'd be 1 over 2. Slope is always attached to the x. And then my y-intercept is negative 3. So since it's negative 3, I'm going to write minus 3. And then that is my answer. So for this one, I had to figure out what slope-intercept was for the equation they gave me, find my slope, which is a half, and then I have to know that parallel lines have the same slope, and I plug it into my y equals mx plus b formula using this point. And then I solve for my y-intercept, and that gives me my equation. Okay? So that's how we find parallel lines. Now let's do some perpendicular lines. All right, perpendicular lines are two lines that cross and they make a 90-degree angle. So if I drew like this right here, you can see that's a 90-degree angle. Ooh, it's not a very straight square, but you get the point. That's a 90-degree angle, right? So two lines that intersect or cross and make a 90-degree angle. All right, and parallel lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. So for example, the opposite reciprocal of 2/3 is -3/2. Right? So opposite means that you're changing the sign, and reciprocal means that you're flipping the fraction, right? So for it to be perpendicular, one line has to be negative and one line has to be positive, right? And the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So you can see this line has a slope of 3/4, and this slope has a slope of -4/3. Those are opposite reciprocals, right? The fraction is flipped and they change the sign, right? So that is a perpendicular line. So let's do an example, all right? So it says write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to 5x plus 6y equals 4. All right, so I have to get y by itself. I have to get it in slope-intercept form because that's the only way I can figure out what my slope is, right? This form over here, this 5x plus 6y, I can't figure out what the slope is. Y has to be by itself. All right, so how do I do that? Well, I want to get y by itself, right? So I have to get rid of this 5x. So I'm going to do a minus 5x because that will cancel these two out, right? And I got to do the same thing to the other side. Well, on my left side, I'm left with 6y. And on my right side, I have that minus 5x. And I have a positive 4. So I'm going to put plus 4. Okay? All right, so now I want to get y by itself. Well, I have to get rid of that 6. Well, this means 6 times y. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide by 6. And then do the same thing over here. -5 divided by 6 would give me -5/6. 4 divided by 6 would be 4/6. And 4/6 I can reduce to 2/3. Right? So it'd be plus 2/3. All right, I don't really need that 2/3, but what I do need is I need my slope. So my slope, remember, is this right here. It's the m. It's always a number with the x when y is by itself. So my slope here is -5/6. -5/6. So we know that perpendicular lines, our slopes are opposite reciprocals, right? So if I have -5/6, the opposite reciprocal of that would be I flip the fraction and change the sign. So instead of 5/6, it's going to become 6/5. And instead of a negative, it's going to become positive. That's an opposite reciprocal. So from there, I'm going to plug it into my equation, my y equals mx plus b. So my new slope, my perpendicular slope is 6/5. So that's what I'm going to plug in for my slope, 6/5. All right, what am I going to plug in for x? Well, they gave me this ordered pair here, right? My first number is my x value. My second number is my y value. So I'm going to plug 10 in for x. And it gave me -2 for y. So y, I'm going to make -2. I don't know what b is. B is what I'm solving for. All right, so now I can do this. So I'm going to pull up my calculator. All right, I'm going to see 6/5. 6/5, and we're going to times it by 10, and I get 12. So I have 12 plus b equals -2. So now I want to get b by itself, so I have to get rid of this 12, right? Well, this is a positive 12, so I'm going to do a minus 12 to get rid of it. Minus 12. And -2 minus 12 gives me -14. -14 equals b. All right, but that's not my final answer. My final answer is to ask for the equation, right? So I have to get the equation. Well, the equation is slope-intercept form, so it's always y equals. So I'm going to put y equals, and then I'm going to put my new slope, the slope that we found, the perpendicular slope, the 6/5, right? That was my slope. So 6/5, and then slope's always attached with the x, and my b is my y-intercept, which is -14, so I put -14. And that is my answer. Okay? So parallel lines, they have a slope that is the same. So it's the same slope. Nothing you have to do with it. You just got to figure out what the slope is, and then you plug it into your slope-intercept form with your point. Perpendicular lines, it's opposite reciprocal. So you take your fraction, you flip the fraction, and you change the sign. right? So this one we figured out the slope was -5/6. So the perpendicular line is 6/5. You flip the fraction and change the sign. Opposite reciprocal. All right? If you have any questions, you can always ask a teacher, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!